I took the oath with a stone in one hand and a blade in the other. The stone was from the hills of my birth, cold and solid, a piece of the Reach itself. The blade was old iron, stained with the blood of Nords. Goron, our clan chief, a man whose heart had been replaced with the knotted magic of a briar, watched me with eyes that held no warmth, only purpose. He did not need to speak the words of the pact. I knew them. They were sung to me in my cradle. They were carved into the standing stones that watched over our hidden camps. They were the rhythm of my own heart, to reclaim our land, to drive the invaders back into their frozen cities, to honor the old gods who had been forgotten by the soft men of the South. I was given my marks that night. The hagraven Melka drew her obsidian knife across my face, carving the symbols of our tribe into my skin. The pain was a fire that burned away the boy I had been. I did not cry out. I stared into the flames of the central fire and saw the faces of my ancestors. I saw my grandfather, his farm burned to the ground by blue-coated legion men who called it pacification. I saw my mother, her spirit broken by the endless flight, the hunger, the cold. I saw the promise of a future where our children would not need to hide in caves and whisper the names of our gods. They would shout them from the peaks of the mountains that were rightfully ours. I write this now by the light of a tallow lamp, the leather-bound book a gift from another new blood, one who had taken it from a Nord merchant on the road. He could not read the symbols, but I could. My mother had taught me a secret act of defiance. She said words were stones you could build with or throw. I intend to build a record, a history of our victory. I want to remember this feeling, this purity of purpose. Every ache in my scarred face is a reminder of my vow. Every gust of wind through this rocky crevice sounds like a call to arms. We are the true sons and daughters of the Reach. We are its fury, its memory, its sharp stone edge. The Nords in Markarth sit in their stone halls, fat and comfortable on our land, breathing our air. They will soon remember the price of their theft. They will remember the name Forsworn. 3 weeks after my initiation, I was given my first real duty beyond sentry watches and skinning deer. I was to join a raiding party. Our target was a silver caravan coming out of Karthwast and heading for the capital. Kalen, a weathered warrior who moved with the quiet grace of a hunting cat, was our leader. He was not a Briarheart like Goron, but he was respected. He had survived the Markarth incident, had seen our brief moment of freedom stolen away by Ulfric's Stormcloak, the same man who now claimed to fight for Skyrim's freedom. The irony was a bitter taste in all our mouths. Kalen gathered the 6 of us. He did not give a speech full of fire and glory. He spoke in low tones, pointing to a map scratched into a slab of slate. He showed us the ambush point, a narrow pass where the wagons would be forced to slow. He assigned each of us a position. My heart hammered against my ribs, a wild drumbeat of fear and excitement. I was to be on the high rocks with a bow, providing cover, picking off the guards from a distance. The waiting was the hardest part. We lay for hours among the gray rocks, the wind a constant cold companion. It smelled of pine and distant rain. I clutched my bow, its wooden grip worn smooth by hands that came before mine. I thought I understood duty. I believed it was this: the patient wait, the shared silence, the readiness to act for a cause greater than myself. Kalen lay beside me, utterly still, his eyes fixed on the winding road below. He seemed a part of the mountain itself. When the caravan finally appeared, it was smaller than I expected. 2 wagons, 6 guards in the livery of the Silverblood family. They were mercenaries, not legionaries or Stormcloak soldiers. They walked with a lazy confidence, their helmets gleaming in the pale sunlight. They did not know the rocks were watching them. They did not know the air itself held its breath. Kalen gave a signal, a bird call so perfect it did not startle the real birds from the trees. The first arrow flew from his bow, a black streak that buried itself in the throat of the lead guard. The man fell without a sound. Before the others could react, my own arrow was loosed. I aimed for the chest, the largest target. It struck a man in the shoulder. He screamed a raw, ugly sound that shattered the peace of the valley. Then the world erupted. Our warriors swarmed from the rocks below, axes and swords raised. The sounds of battle were not like the songs. They were grunts of effort, the wet chunk of blades hitting flesh, the screams of pain and terror. I fired again and again, my fingers growing numb, my mind focused only on the moving shapes below. A guard turned to run. An arrow from my bow took him in the back. He stumbled and fell. I felt a surge of triumph. I was contributing. I was fighting for the reach. It was over quickly. The guards lay broken on the road. The two drivers had surrendered, their hands in the air, their faces white with fear. Kalen and the others began to loot the wagons, pulling out heavy chests of silver ore and coin. I scrambled down the rocks, my legs unsteady. The smell of blood was thick in the air. One of the drivers, a man no older than me, was on his knees begging. He spoke of his family in Markarth, his children. He swore he had no quarrel with the Forsworn. Kalen walked over to him, his face unreadable. He listened for a moment. Then he drew his sword and cut the man's throat. The begging stopped, replaced by a gurgling sound. The other driver tried to run. One of our warriors, a woman named Moray, threw her axe. It spun through the air and embedded itself in his spine. I stood frozen. I had not expected this. These men were not soldiers, they were workers. Kalen saw the look on my face. He wiped his blade on the dead man's tunic and walked over to me. "They are Nords," he said, his voice calm. "They work for the Silver Bloods who bleed our land and our people. There is no such thing as an innocent Nord in the Reach. Their comfort is built on our suffering. Do not forget that." I nodded, unable to speak. I looked at the bodies. They did not look like invaders, they looked like men. But Kalen was my elder. He was a hero of our people. He understood things I did not. I had to trust his wisdom. I had to learn the hard truths of this war. This was not a song or a story, this was the reality. I picked up a crate of silver, its weight a heavy burden. I told myself it was the price of freedom. I wrote that in my journal that night. I wrote it twice to make sure I believed it. It was necessary. By winter, the world had shrunk to the size of our camp and the hunting grounds around it. The snows came early, blanketing the mountains in a deep silence. Life became harder, a daily struggle for food and warmth. The raids became less about silver and more about survival. We attacked Nord farms nestled in the lower valleys, taking grain, livestock, anything we could carry. I remember one raid in particular. It was a small homestead, a single stone house with a thatched roof, smoke curling from its chimney. There were only two of them, a man and a woman, old and weathered as the hills themselves. They had a few goats and a small store of dried fish and grain. When we burst through their door, they did not fight. They stood together, the man holding a wood-cutting axe he never raised, the woman clutching a religious amulet, a symbol of one of the Nord gods. Our orders from Goron were clear. Leave no witnesses. Leave nothing behind that could support our enemies. We were to be ghosts, a terror that struck from the wilderness and vanished. I was tasked with searching the small house. It was clean and sparse. There was a bed, a table, a few pots. On a small shelf sat a collection of carved wooden animals. A wolf, a bear, a deer. They were simple but skillfully made. They reminded me of the toys my own father used to carve for me during the long winters before the Nords came. I picked up the small wooden wolf. Its form felt familiar in my hand. From outside, I heard the woman begin to pray in a low, trembling voice. Then I heard a shout, a sickening thud, and silence. My stomach twisted. I walked out of the house. The old man lay in the snow, his blood a stark red against the white. Kaelin was standing over the woman. She was looking at him, her eyes wide with a sorrow so deep it seemed to have no room for fear. "He was just a farmer," she whispered. "We were born here. This land is our home too." Kaelin's face was a mask of stone. "This land has never been your home. You are squatters, and you have been squatting for too long." He raised his axe. I turned away. I did not want to see, did not want to. I heard the sound, and then another silence, this one deeper than the snow. We took the grain and the goats. As we were leaving, Kaelin ordered me to set the house alight. I hesitated. It seemed a needless cruelty. The people were dead. What purpose did burning their empty home serve? "An empty house can shelter a Nord patrol," Kaelin said, his voice sharp, as if he had read my thoughts. "A burned house is a message. It says this land is not safe for you. It says go back to your cities. It says you are not welcome here." I did as I was told. I took a torch and thrust it into the dry thatch of the roof. The flames caught quickly, greedily licking up the walls. We watched it burn for a few moments, the heat a welcome sensation against the biting cold. But I felt no warmth inside me, only a hollow chill. On the long march back to camp, the carved wooden wolf felt heavy in my pouch. I thought about what the old woman had said. This land is our home too. Could that be true? Could a Nord born in the Reach have a claim to it? I pushed the thought away. It was a dangerous thought. It was a weak thought. Goran and the Hagravens taught us that pity was a poison. It was a Nord luxury, something the oppressor could afford. The oppressed could only afford hatred. Hatred was a tool. It kept you sharp. It kept you alive. When we returned to the camp, there was no celebration. We delivered the food and it was distributed. It was a victory, but a quiet, grim one. That night, I took the wooden wolf from my pouch. I held it in my hand, feeling the smooth, worn wood. Then I threw it into the fire. I watched it blacken and curl, the flames consuming the simple effigy until it was nothing but ash. I told myself I was burning away a weakness. I was becoming the warrior the Reach needed me to be. I wrote in my journal that compassion is a wound, and we could not afford to bleed. That year, the seasons turned on a wheel of blood and iron. The snows melted and the raids intensified. We grew bolder. We were no longer just striking caravans and isolated farms. We were a true insurgency, a constant thorn in the side of the Nords who held Markarth. We sabotaged their mines, ambushed their patrols, and freed our captured brethren from their slave columns. I became a seasoned warrior. The boy who had flinched at the execution of a wagon driver was gone, buried under a callus of necessity. I moved with confidence. My bow was an extension of my arm. My axe felt comfortable in my hand. I saw things that would have broken the younger me. I saw a Nord legionary captured after a skirmish given to the hag-raven Melka for her rituals. I heard his screams echo through the canyons for a full night before they finally faded. Goran told us it was a necessary sacrifice to the old gods to secure their favor in our struggle. He said the gods demanded blood, and it was better to give them Nord blood than our own. I saw the logic in it. It was a cold, hard logic, like the stone of the mountains, but it was a logic I could follow. We needed every advantage. We needed the power the old ways offered. So I listened to the screams and told myself it was the sound of our strength growing. I rose in the ranks. Kaelin began to trust me, to give me command of small groups of fighters. I led my own ambushes. I learned to read the land, to see the best places to lay a trap, to anticipate the movements of our enemies. I learned to be ruthless. I gave the same orders Kalen had given me. Leave no witnesses. Take everything of value. Burn the rest. I repeated the words he had spoken to me to the new recruits, the young men and women with fire in their eyes and doubt in their hearts. There is no such thing as an innocent Nord in the Reach. The words felt more true each time I said them. They had to be true. Otherwise, what were we doing? What were we becoming? One day, we captured a Nord spy. He was a scout for the Legion caught near our territory. He was young, not much older than I was when I first joined. We brought him before Goron. The Briarheart chief looked the boy over, his expression unchanging. He ordered the spy to be questioned. Kalen took charge of the interrogation. It was not a pleasant process. I was made to stand and watch. It was a test, I knew, a test of my resolve. The spy was brave. He endured the pain for a long time without speaking, but in the end, everyone speaks. He told us of a planned Legion assault, the route they would take, the number of men. It was valuable information, information that could save dozens of our lives. After the spy had given up everything he knew, he lay broken on the ground, begging for a quick death. Kalen looked at me. "Finish it," he said. This was a new line to cross. I had killed in the heat of battle. I had killed from a distance with my bow. I had even executed prisoners, but always in the immediate aftermath of a fight. This was different. This was a calculated act long after the struggle was over. The man was helpless, defeated. I drew my axe. The young Nord looked up at me. His eyes were not full of hate, but of a strange, pleading understanding. He was a soldier just like me. He was serving his people just as I was serving mine. In another life, we might have shared a drink in an inn. The thought was a flicker, a moment of dangerous empathy. I crushed it. I brought the axe down. I did not sleep that night. I sat with my journal, but the words would not come. What was there to write? That I had done my duty? That I had followed an order? That I had killed a helpless man? I tried to justify it. He was the enemy. He would have killed me without a second thought. His information saved us. His death was a necessity. I wrote the words down, one after another. Necessary, duty, survival. They looked like lies on the page. The next morning, Kalen found me staring into the fire. He sat beside me, silent for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice low. "The first time is the hardest," he said. "You think you have killed a man, but you have not. You have killed an idea. The idea that there is a difference between them and us, between a soldier in battle and a prisoner in a cage. Once you kill that idea, the rest becomes easier." He was right. It did become easier. The lines I had once seen so clearly began to blur. The world was no longer black and white. It was gray, a landscape of rock and shadow, and the only thing that mattered was survival. And the only path to survival was victory. I started to understand the world as Goron and the Hagravens saw it. A brutal, endless conflict where the only morality was strength. I wrote in my journal that I thought I understood duty, but I had been a child. Duty was not about honor or righteousness. It was about obedience, obedience to the cause, obedience to your chief, obedience to the harsh laws of the world we lived in. I wrote that I understood obedience now. And in that understanding, I found a strange, cold comfort. I no longer had to question, I only had to act. By the time the snow fell again, I was a different man. The change had not been sudden, but a slow erosion like water wearing down stone. The doubts that had plagued me were gone, replaced by a hardened certainty. We were right, they were wrong. It was that simple. Any action taken in service of our cause was justified. The world had made us into this, and we would use the weapons it had given us: fear, cruelty, and unwavering resolve. Kalen was killed that winter. A Nord patrol got lucky. An arrow found a gap in his armor. We brought his body back to the camp. There was no grand funeral. We burned his body on a pyre, as is our custom, and his ashes were scattered to the mountain winds. Goron said a few words, not of sorrow, but of anger. He spoke of vengeance. He told us that Kalen's death must be paid for tenfold. I felt a cold rage, but not grief. Grief was a weakness I could no longer afford. Kalen had taught me to be hard, and in his death I became harder still. His loss created a void in our command structure, and Goron looked to me to help fill it. I was given more responsibility, more authority. I became one of his lieutenants. I planned the raids. I trained the new recruits. I enforced the discipline of the camp. I became known for my efficiency. My raids were swift, brutal, and successful. I learned to think like our enemy, to predict their patrols, to exploit their weaknesses. I never left survivors. I never left anything but ash and fear in my wake. The Nords began to call me the Ghost of the Reach, a name I wore with a grim pride. The Hagraven Melka took a special interest in me. She saw the change, the hardening of my spirit. She said I had the strength the old gods demanded. One night she summoned me to her tent. It was a place of bone and feather, smelling of strange herbs and dried blood. She told me that I was ready for the final commitment. Ready to become a Briarheart. It was the greatest honor a warrior of the Reach could receive, to have your mortal beating heart removed and replaced with a Briarheart, a fusion of alchemy and ancient magic. It granted immense strength, a resistance to pain, and a deep physical connection to the land itself. It was also a final severing. A Briarheart felt little of what other men felt: fear, love, pity. These were emotions of the weak heart that was discarded. I did not hesitate. I said yes. The ritual was agony. I was laid out on a stone altar under a full moon. Goron and the other Briarhearts stood watching as Melka began her chant. Her voice was like the grating of stone on stone. She cut open my chest with her obsidian knife. The pain was beyond anything I had ever imagined, a white-hot nova that consumed my world. I felt her hand, cold and ancient, reach inside me. I felt her grasp my heart. For a moment, as she held it in her hand, my life flashed before me. I saw my mother's smile. I saw the wooden wolf I had carved as a child. I saw the face of the young Nord spy, his eyes pleading. I felt a surge of all the things I was about to lose, a lifetime of warmth and fear and small joys. Then she pulled it free. The world went black. I awoke to a strange sensation, a dull, rhythmic pulsing in my chest. It was not the familiar beat of a heart. It was something else, slower, stronger, colder. I sat up. The wound in my chest was gone, sealed with magic, leaving only a swirling dark scar. I looked down at my hands. They seemed different, the hands of a stranger. Goron stood over me. "Welcome, brother," he said. I felt nothing, no joy, no fear, no pain from the wound. I felt only a profound and empty clarity. The world seemed sharper, its colors more defined. The wind on my skin was just a pressure, not a chill. The emotional fog I had lived in my entire life had lifted, and what remained was pure, cold purpose. I understood. Now, this was the ultimate expression of our cause. To win this war, we had to cut out our own hearts. We had to become things of stone and wood and rage. We had to become the monsters the Nords believed us to be, because only a monster could drive them from our lands. I returned to my small alcove in the rock. My journal was sitting where I had left it. I picked it up. I read my first entry, the words of a hopeful, naive boy who spoke of purity and honor. I felt a flicker of something, not contempt, not pity, but a distant, analytical curiosity. That boy was a stranger to me, a creature from another world. He could not have survived what I had survived. He could not do what I now had to do. I ripped the page from the book. I held it over my lamp until it caught fire. I watched the earnest, hopeful words turn to black ash and float away into the darkness. I wrote once that honor mattered more than victory. I burned that page. Victory is the only honor that matters. It is the only history that is remembered. My entries in the journal changed after that. They became reports. Clinical. Efficient. We processed 17 villages this month. Efficiency improved. Resistance minimal. Nord morale in the eastern holds is beginning to fracture. I no longer think about the screaming. It becomes noise like the wind or the cry of a hawk. It is simply a data point in the calculus of war, a measure of our effectiveness. I lead the war parties now. Goron directs the grand strategy, but I am the blade that executes his will. I am the ghost they whisper about in the taverns of Markarth. They say I cannot be killed. In a way, they are right. The man I was is long dead. What is left is an instrument of vengeance, a body animated by the will of the Reach and the magic of the old gods. We captured a Legion emissary. He was carrying dispatches. He tried to bargain with me. He spoke of peace, of treaties, of a shared future. I listened to his words, and they were meaningless. Peace is a lie told by the victor to the vanquished. We have not won yet. Therefore, there can be no peace. I took his dispatches and his life. The information they contained allowed us to ambush a Legion supply train, crippling their operations for the entire season. A successful outcome. Sometimes when I am sharpening my axe or studying the maps, I will catch a glimpse of my own reflection in the polished steel. For a moment, I do not recognize the face. The eyes are hollow pits. The mouth is a line of cruelty. The ritual scars are stark and alien. Then I do. I recognize the scar above the lip, the one I got from falling as a boy. That is always worse. The recognition that this creature is me. The feeling lasts only a moment, a flicker of the old heart's ghost. Then it is gone, and there is only the mission. The Hagraven Melka says I am the perfect weapon. I do not tire. I do not question. I do not feel. She is correct. I have become what she made me. I have become what the Nords made me. I am the culmination of a generation of suffering and rage given form and purpose. We have begun to push them back. For the first time in my life, the tide is turning. We have taken back small parts of our territory. We have established permanent camps in valleys that were once held by Nord farmers. The fear we have sown is bearing fruit. They are abandoning their homesteads, fleeing to the safety of the walled cities. The land is slowly returning to us. I write this not with pride or satisfaction. Those are feelings for men with hearts. I write it as a statement of fact. The strategy is effective. Our methods are working. My transformation was necessary. I write that word often. Necessary. It has become my explanation for everything. It means nothing. It means everything. It is the stone upon which I have built this new self. All the blood, all the ash, all the empty houses and silent bodies, they were all necessary. There can be a no other answer. If there were another answer, I would not be able to hold this pen. I would not be able to look at my own reflection without shattering the steel. After countless raids, after so many seasons of blood that they bled into one long gray twilight, we prepared for our greatest assault. We had bled the Nords in the countryside, strangling Markarth's supply lines until the city was a starving beast. Now it was time to strike the head. Goron, his briar heart pulsing with a visible, unnatural light, gathered the clans. For the first time in a generation, the scattered tribes of the Forsworn were united. Hundreds of warriors, their faces painted with the symbols of our vengeance, stood ready. I was given command of the vanguard. My task was to breach the main gate and hold it, to create the opening through which our tide of fury could pour. I felt no anticipation, no fear. I felt only the cold, clear logic of the battle plan. I reviewed the maps, the placement of my warriors, the timing of the assault. It was a problem of geometry and force. The attack came at dawn. We swarmed out of the hills like a flood, our war cries a dissonant chorus that echoed off the city walls. The Nord guards were caught by surprise, but they were soldiers and they recovered quickly. Arrows rained down from the ramparts. The air filled with the sounds of war I had come to know so well. The shriek of steel, the splintering of wood, the wet cough of a man dying with a spear in his lungs. I was in the center of it, a whirlwind of motion. My axe rose and fell. I did not see faces, only blue-clad bodies, obstacles to be removed. I felt arrows strike my armor, blows from swords that would have felled a normal man. I barely registered them. The briar heart in my chest pulsed, driving me forward, repairing the damage, fueling me with the raw energy of the earth. We reached the gate. Our berserkers, their bodies covered in woad and rage, slammed a massive log against the ancient wood. Again and again, the city's defenses shuddered. I climbed a siege ladder, my axe in one hand. I was among the first over the wall. I landed in a courtyard of startled guards. I moved through them. There was no thought, only action. A shield blocked my path. I shattered it, and the arm behind it. A sword thrust at my chest. I turned the blow and buried my axe in the man's skull. I was not a man fighting. I was a force of nature, a rock slide, an avalanche. We took the gatehouse. We threw down the bar. The great gates of Markarth swung open and our people flooded in. The city that had been our prison, our shame, was now our battlefield. We fought from street to street, house to house. The Nords, for all their pride, were not prepared for this. They were not prepared for an enemy that had nothing to lose, an enemy that had cut out its own heart to achieve victory. We pushed them back to the stone fortress of Understone Keep, the palace of the Jarl. There they mounted their last desperate defense. The fighting was close, brutal, a meat grinder in the narrow halls. And we were winning. We were truly winning. The dream of a free reach was within our grasp, paid for with a river of blood. In the chaos of the final assault on the throne room, I found myself in a part of the keep I did not recognize. A side chamber. It was a nursery, lavishly appointed, filled with expensive toys and a finely crafted wooden crib. A woman, a Nord noble by her dress, stood over the crib, a dagger in her hand. She was not looking at me. She was looking at the infant sleeping in the cot. There were tears streaming down her face. She raised the dagger, her hand trembling. She was going to kill her own child before we could. The boy who I had been would have been horrified. He would have felt pity. He might have tried to intervene. I felt nothing. It was a tactical problem. A living noble child could become a symbol for the Nords, a rallying point for a future rebellion. A dead child was a tragedy, but a strategically sound outcome. Her actions served our purpose. I watched her, my axe held loosely at my side, my mind a cold slate of calculation. She saw me then. Her eyes widened in terror. She looked from me to her child, her resolve breaking. She dropped the dagger and fell to her knees, shielding the crib with her body, sobbing. An illogical emotional response, a weakness. I walked past her. I did not kill her. I did not kill the child. They were no longer a threat. They were just irrelevant, broken pieces of a broken people. I left the room and rejoined the fight. We took the throne room. The Jarl was slain. Goron stood before the stone throne of Markarth, the symbol of our oppression, and he did not sit. He smashed it to pieces with his warhammer. The city was ours. In the days that followed, we purged Markarth of the Nords. The Silverbloods were hunted down and executed in the public square. The soldiers were put to the sword. The civilians, they were driven out, sent. They stumbling into the wilderness with nothing but the clothes on their backs. It was what they had done to us. It was justice. I walked the battlements of the city, looking out over the lands we had reclaimed. The mountains stood silent, cloaked in mist. This was what I had fought for. This was the victory I had sacrificed everything to achieve. I should have felt triumph, pride, something. I felt a profound stillness, an emptiness that echoed the hollow in my chest. We had won. The war for now was over, and I did not know what to do. My purpose had been the fight, the planning, the killing, the relentless drive forward. Without an enemy to destroy, I was adrift. I wandered the now quiet halls of Understone Keep. Much of it was damaged, stained with smoke and blood. In one of the less damaged chambers, a library of sorts, I found a silver platter, miraculously polished and whole. I picked it up. I saw my reflection. I see the face in the silver plate. It is not my face. It cannot be. The eyes are hollow pits of shadow. The skin is a roadmap of scars. The old ritual marks a pale imitation of the deeper, crueler lines etched by years of hate. The mouth is a thin, hard line, a stranger to smiles. There is dried blood, not my own, crusted at my hairline. I do not recognize this man, this creature, this thing of scars and rage. Then I see it, above the lip, a small, thin scar, almost invisible now. I got it falling from a tree when I was 6, trying to get a better look at an eagle's nest. My mother fussed over me for a week. It is my face. The platter falls from my hands. It clatters on the stone floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. The illusion of the briar heart, the cold clarity shatters. For one excruciating moment, the ghost of my old heart floods me with everything I have suppressed for years. The face of the begging driver, the sound of the old woman's prayer, the feel of the wooden wolf in my hand, the pleading eyes of the Nord, spy, the sobbing mother in the nursery. All of it rushes in, a tidal wave of horror. What have I done? Kalen told me that to win, we had to become the beast the Nords feared. We succeeded. We stand now in their stolen city, and we are the monsters. We have not reclaimed our home. We have only become the new predators who stalk its ruins. I return to the small room they have given me. My journal lies on the table. This record, this monument to my own damnation. I thought I understood duty. Then I understood obedience. Now I understand neither. There are no more words. There is only the silence of a man who has won everything and has nothing left. I am the ghost my mother warned me about.